Hey everybody watching Cad Roll Hunter, and I got some pennies from the bank, and I'm super excited this time because I could see something old peeking out of the top of one of these rolls. I see a little King George VI. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, this is James, and you're watching my channel, Cad Roll Hunter. I love hunting pennies, but my last penny hunt was probably the worst one I've had in a long time. I took a full box of pennies, or a bag of pennies, really, the equivalent of a box, from the Toronto penny hoard. 20 boxes worth of coins that I had picked up from another collector who got them from banks. And we didn't really find much of anything, though we did find lots of copper. Well, the very next day, I went to the bank because they called me to say they got pennies, and these were what they had. And it looks like we got some copper. I see some older ends, lots of copper, I think, here too. But I could just see a King George V peeking out there. So we've got 24 rolls. We got a bunch that are in homemade wrappers here, and one that appears to be rolled in a plastic bag. That's really crazy. And I think we got some oldies, specifically in a couple of the enders here I saw, but we're going to start over here and see if we can find any oldies. We have spots to fill in our Lighthouse Vista Nature album, so we want to find some oldies, and I think we're going to do that today. That's awesome. Let's get started with roll number 1 right here. Well, it doesn't look like we're going to start with any oldies right away, at least not at the end of this first roll. There is copper on the one end here, but this is a modern steel or zinc cent. All right, well, we know we got at least one King George VI, but you never know what's in these rolls until you dive into them. So there's definitely some newer, modern, shiny stuff in there, but I'm seeing lots of older copper, some of those 12-sided edges, possibly some older ones in here too. We'll just throw it back there, and that's a 1999. And then we've definitely got some copper here in 82 for sure. If I find anything, I will bring you in. Well, look at that. We got a 1985. We'll check that under the scope first. Well, second. But we got our first laureate portraits in 1964. That's a good start. There's the 85 under the scope. We're always looking for the pointed 5. We want to find the end of this 5 on an angle. This is the blunt 5, not the one we're looking for. We're in roll number 4, and it is just about half and half copper and zinc and steel, maybe more copper. But I'm bringing you in because we got another laureate portrait. This time it's a 1962. We can check it for a particular variety. One in particular that we're looking for is the guitar or harp variety. There are lines that come down from this one that we don't see here. We always want to look for that. That is a fun one, and it's a particularly valuable one. You could probably sell that, even in this condition here, for $15 or $20 if you're inclined to sell a really cool coin like that. Same roll, there is a 1963, our third laureate portrait of the hunt so far. I'm still in roll number 4, and this hunt just got real good real quick, because check it out. I checked out this 1985, and it is the pointed 5 variety. We can see that point right there, different from the one we looked at earlier. In hand, it's it's turning, it's getting some brown on it there, of course. It's not in mint condition, but that is an awesome find. We got a 1985 pointed 5. What a wonderful find. Apparently I'm not so good at the math. We still have 6 rolls up there, so which means this roll is roll number 4. So the last roll was roll number 3. But we got a pretty slick looking Elizabeth here, and this one is our first 1961. Same roll, and there's a pretty beat up dark 1964. It has seen better days, but we're going to count that one. It's a laureate portrait for the board. Same roll, and we're going to get our first one from the 50s. It's a 1953. We're going to check this one and see if it is the shoulder fold or the no shoulder fold. The shoulder fold is the tougher one to get in the 1953. And a quick check here on the obverse tells us this is the common no shoulder fold. We can see the flared lettering of the I here that is different than you would see on the shoulder fold. So we got the 1953 no shoulder fold, but we got a 50s penny. That's awesome. Well, we're done that first stack of 10 rolls. We're actually up to, well, we got a bunch more laureate portraits, a bunch of 62s. I didn't show you all of them because I'm hoping, of course, that we're going to have lots of things to look at in here, and that's going to make this video long. So we've done pretty well so far, and of course we got that 1985 pointed 5, which is really cool. Now I'm excited to get into these ones, and I'm going to just grab the one where we could see that we've got a George Ender. I'll roll this out or get it ready to go, and then we'll take a peek. So this certainly looks like a bunch of old copper, with the notable exception of this one penny right in the middle there. It's a 12-sided edge, so we know that is from 1982 and on. That's kind of strange, but we've definitely got some oldies. I see another one from the 40s there. I'm going to have to put the camera down for a second. We'll lay this down and take a look. Now that is an awesome sight. We've got a whole bunch of old Enders, and I can see that we got a bunch of Georgies here. So there is our Ender. It's a 1952, so that's a last year King George VI. Now we've got a 67 here, so that's not an oldie. I'll scope that one, make sure it doesn't have the DDO, the doubled die obverse. But yeah, we're going to get a whole bunch. 43, 45, 50. This is awesome. This is what you always hope you'll find when you get some pennies. 42, 43, 46. So we're getting a lot from the 40s here. 51. There's a laureate portrait, 1962. I'll check that one for the guitar or harp. 51, 44, 51, 45, 45. We are getting tons of King George VI, almost exclusively in this roll. We'll see what this shiny one is here in a second. Oh, it looks pretty shiny too. 1986, almost uncirculated here, but it's got some kind of marks or corrosion or something on the front there, unfortunately. But otherwise, well, that's an old US. It's a wheat cent. I'll have to see if I can get a date. It might be a 41. This is so heavily corroded. This is a great example of where using the microscope doesn't help at all. In hand, it looks like I can kind of make out, I think it's a 1940 something. It doesn't really matter, it's in such terrible condition. But we'll put that at the top of the board. We got a undated wheat penny, and this looks like it's in pretty decent condition here. Still some good detail. That's a 1947 maple leaf. That maple leaf means that this was minted in 1948. The Royal Canadian Mint was waiting on new dies from England that omitted the et in imp and Emperor of India. So they needed coins, and they just put that maple leaf on there to designate that they were actually minted in 1948. But that's actually a pretty nice looking coin. Moved a few coins back here, and we're going to get one from the 30s. This is our oldest one so far, 1938. That is a great one to find. We may as well just look at the rest of these together here. 42. Of course, we got an Elizabeth 66. 52, 40, 46, 42, 42, 51. There is a 47 without the maple leaf that was actually minted in 1947. There's a 65. We'll just throw this under the scope here and see if it is the pointed 5, and it's not. The pointed 5 is on a pretty significant angle, and it gets pretty close to the stem of the maple leaf there. So one you always want to look for. We just got a few more in this roll to look through. 51, 46, 43, 42, 45, 51, and a 49. And there is a variety to look for on this 49. We'll throw this one under the scope. There is our 49. We want to see if we have the second A in Gratia. This one is pointing between denticles. We're looking for the one that points to the denticle as the rare variety. We didn't get it. This one's got some damage, some pretty odd damage on the rim. But you want to look for on the 49, the A pointing to a denticle. So this next roll has the look of copper, but it's not going to be quite as old stuff there. There's another 65. It doesn't look like it is the pointed 5. It is not. If there's anything cool in here, I will bring you back in. Well, I don't know if we can get much cooler than that. Have a look at this beauty. That is a 1964 stunner. Wow, that is an incredible one. I'll put that up on the board. I'll keep this separate from the rest of the trashy 64s we found because that is just a beautiful coin. Same roll, another 50s penny. We're going to scope this one and see which variety we've got. And that is also the common no shoulder fold. Same roll, another stunner. This one from the 70s. I love finding these brilliant uncirculated pennies. Beautiful. Still on that roll, another from the 50s. That's a 1959. And I could see another shiny one. We may as well take a peek. It's going to be a 1974, but this one is starting to become brown. You can see on the field there how it's starting to change. And definitely on the obverse as well. And we are going to get a George in here, at least one anyway. That's another one from the 40s, 1944. I found a few more laureate portrait in this roll, but this one here is our first one from 1955. This is roll number 13. We've had a few from the 60s, but we are going to get more George. A couple more George anyway. There's a 1948. This one we want to check to see if we can find the small denticles, the A pointing to the small denticles. I'll throw this one under the scope. We'll take a look. That is certainly an A pointing to a denticle, but it is not the small denticle. This is the large denticle. The small denticle just looks like a small little line coming out from the edge rather than like this big shape, like a little rectangle. And it looks like we're going to get a bunch more from the 40s, 43. Oh, from the 50s, 52. Some more Georges anyway. 45. Another 67. 51. 1940, 52, 43. All right, well, I'll go through the rest of this. If there is anything that we want to scope, I'll bring you in. Still moving here, and there is our second from the 30s. Can't believe we find some old stuff like this from time to time. 1939. Awesome. Same roll. I've got another 1949 under the scope, and it's one of the other common varieties. This one is the A pointing between the large denticles. We have two 1949s, two varieties. If we can find one more in that third variety, which is the rare one, that would be awesome. Same roll, and we did it. We got the first year King George VI, 1937. We can't get a Canadian penny older than this without getting a King George V, and that would be incredible. I've really only got a handful of King George V, and only in one hunt, probably only in one roll. That is a 1937, pretty nice looking coin. I would love it if we could find something a little bit older. That's a beautiful looking coin, actually. Roll 16 is going to have more Georges. I can see that 41 on the end, and I see George along here. And the way this fell down, there's a beautiful one right here, a couple maybe. And they're from the 80s. A beautiful 81. And this one was a 1980. Some gorgeous copper cents. Look at that one just gleaming. Roll 18 is marked Canadian Maple Leaf, so that could probably be any of these guys. And our ender is in 1942, and I see George, I see Rex, I see a lot of old copper here. That is very encouraging. Awesome. So lots of Georgies in there, 40s and early 50s, but we've got a 1948. So we want to see if we can find that A pointing to a small denticle. That's the rare one. So there is our 48. And we will flip it over, and these do not look like the small denticles. That's an A pointing to a large denticle. It's one of the common ones. And the very next coin is another one we could check. That's a 49. Again, what we want to find here is an A pointing two identical. That's the tough one to find. 1949. Flip that over. And we have it. A pointing to the large dedical. We have found another awesome variety. This has been an incredible hunt. Tons of oldies here and some bright and shinies too. And we've got some crazy cool varieties. We've got the 1985 pointed 5, and here we have the 1949 A pointing to dedical. Roll number 19 has been all copper, but only a handful of old ones. And then this guy was just in there. From France, 5 centime from 1968. That is just crazy. It's quite a bit smaller than a penny, more like the size of a dime. And different color, but I'll take it. We got a foreign that's not a US one from France. Awesome. So far, all copper on roll number 20. Some that still have some shine to them. We've got some laureate portraits in this one so far I haven't even shown you, but we've got George in here as well, and that's a 1951. Roll 21 is a homemade wrapper. I thought it was a plastic bag. It's actually some FedEx tape and some paper. I'm going to have to put the camera down so I can actually dig into this. I'll be right back. Well, this roll is going to give us our second wheat cent, and I suspect we're going to be able to read the date on this one. It's not nearly as bad as the other one was. This is a 1956 Denver. I love getting wheat cents here in Canada. Well, we're going to get another wheat cent here. This is roll number 22. And that one, if I can get it to focus, that's a 1950 out of Denver. Awesome. So this is our last roll, roll number 24. And I got to hand it to whoever put these rolls together. They've used two-sided tape here to seal these things up. And of course, pennies are discontinued in Canada, and so penny wrappers are not all that readily available. Banks will give you wrappers for free if you want to roll up coins and bring them in. But I recently asked at my bank if they had any penny rollers, and they don't. They don't carry them anymore. And that's why pennies come like this in homemade, ingenuity-filled wrappers, or plastic bags or baggies or whatever else you find them in. So got to hand it to people getting creative, cutting up paper and using two-sided tape to make rollers. If there's anything in this one, I will bring you in. Otherwise, we'll do a wrap-up of this awesome hunt. Well, that was awesome. Where do I even start? I guess the first thing to say is this hunt was overwhelmingly older pennies, and we got tons of copper. Pretty much everything on the board is copper. We got almost 3 full cups there. And that's all we did for steel and zinc, aside from our American zinc cents here. So really heavily weighted towards the copper. Speaking of American cents, we did get some American copper. We got 31 US copper cents there. That's awesome. And we got some bright and shiny Canadians over here that I'll look to see if we might upgrade the album. I'm not sure, because we got some really bright and shinies in there. We got another foreign, of course. We got that French 5 centime from 1968, which is incredibly cool. But as for the King George VI and Queen Elizabeth II, we got something from every year with just a couple of exceptions. But we got right from first year, 1937, 38, and 39. And those are 3 of the hardest ones, 3 of the lowest minted pennies from this era. We got one of each of those. But even from 1940 up, we got every year through the 40s and through the 50s, with the exception of the 54, which is perhaps the lower minted of the, well, it is the lowest minted of the 50s, and we didn't get a 56. But everything else all the way up into the 60s, up to 64, that's where I stopped separating them out. Everything else just goes in the copper cup, of course. But that is incredible. And not only that, we got some of the varieties that are harder to find too, because we got this 1949 A pointing to identical, which is a tough one to find. And even in this condition, that could be a $10 or $15 coin, which is an awesome find. And then, of course, speaking of varieties, we got that 1985 pointed 5, which is really cool. Those, I think, are the 2 finds of the day. And of course, we got a couple wheat cents from the 50s here and one from the, well, we will never know because you just can't read the date on that. But we got 3 wheat cents. That's really, really cool. This was an incredible hunt, and hunting pennies doesn't always look like this. But I think this is one of the really cool things about pennies in particular, if you can get them. Now, the banks are supposed to send them back to the mint to get melted down. But some banks will sell them to you, and people are still dropping off pennies every day. Billions of pennies were minted in Canada, and people are still taking them back to the bank. So if you're lucky enough to have a bank that will sell you pennies, that's awesome. And every once in a while, somebody's going to do exactly what happened here today. They're going to empty out an old piggy bank or an old jar or bucket or drawer of pennies, and it's going to be the stuff that's been sitting around for a very long time. And we got a ton of that stuff, which is pretty awesome. I'm going to look in the album to see if we have any upgraders or additions, and I'll be right back. So we actually made some great progress in our Lighthouse Vista Nature album. We actually added 3 coins, and we had an awesome upgrade. So we are now up to 103 of 131 spots in this album, and we did great. So we had an awesome upgrade. This 1964, we did upgrade it. We had a pretty nice one in here, but this one was just a bit better, and it is a phenomenal addition to the album. In terms of spots added, well, we're going to have to go back a couple pages here. Of course, we added the 1985 pointed 5, so that is incredible. A really, really hard spot to fill. And the other spots are back on my supplemental page. So we added the 1949 A to large denticle, but we also didn't have the 1948 A between denticles. That was one of the common varieties. So it's just hard to get a 1948. We didn't have that one filled either. So we are doing really, really well. There's still some stuff that we can get, but at this point in time, we need to get something that is really uncommon or something that is really early in the King George V years. So we did fantastic. I really hope that you enjoyed this penny hunt and album fill in our Lighthouse Vista album. If you did, please give the video a like. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, Cateroll Hunter, hit that button so you know when my videos are coming out. I have new videos coming out all the time. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. We'll see you again next time. The sponsors of today's video are Lighthouse Canada and the Charlton Press. Lighthouse Canada is the leading supplier of high-quality numismatic supplies in Canada, and the Charlton Press is the leading publisher of coin and paper money catalogs and price guides for Canadian collectors. Go check out their online stores today and use the exclusive discount code CRH20 for 20% off all your purchases.